Welcome back to Care for the Common Game. Today, in deck number 840, we're going to talk about Strefan, Maurer Progenitor. Relatively certain I mispronounced that. For 4 mana, we get a 3/2 Flying Vampire Noble. Yeah. At the beginning of your end step, create a blood token for each player who lost life this turn. So we want to damage everybody. Okay. But when Strefan attacks, you may sacrifice 2 blood tokens. If you do, you may put a vampire card from your hand onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking. It's indestructible this turn. So, the creature stays. So this is a way to cheat out expensive vampires. To get the blood tokens, sack 2 blood tokens. Now, Whisper Silk Cloak needs to be in here. It's not, but to protect Strefan, because, you know, getting into combat can sometimes be dangerous. Anyway. So we are black-red vampires. I know it's been a couple days since I've done a black-red vampires, but thanks to living in Innistrad for 2 sets in a row, we have plenty of vampires to choose from. Now, I did not go crazy themed with the blood token strategy. That seems, I think that'll work, but that wasn't what I did. But first off, we want to look at damaging everyone, right? We want to damage all of our opponents. So, Pulse Tracker. When it attacks, each opponent loses 1 life. That way, at the end step, we get, you know, probably 3. So we have 3 opponents. I play bigger games, so maybe more. Zulaport Cutthroat. Each opponent loses. Rakdos Charm. Now, it does have a couple of options here, but each creature deals 1 damage to its controller is a damage everyone. And you can damage yourself, too. So if you lost life this turn, that's another blood token that you can get. Lull Subordinate. At the beginning of combat, if you control your commander, each opponent loses 3. Palace Siege. Beginning of your upkeep, each opponent loses 2 and you gain 2. Sanctum Seeker. Vampire Knight. Whenever a vampire you control attacks, each opponent loses 1, you gain 1. Now, this one is particularly powerful because, you know, our whole deck's vampires. But let's get into our mana fixing, shall we? We have a Wayfarer's Bauble. Go and get that basic land. Soul Ring. The Fire and the Charcoal Diamond. The Rakdos Signet, Cluestone, Locket. Now, I put a premium on mana acceleration because you cannot guarantee that you're going to drop a land every single turn. We want to, but then we don't want to at the same time. We want to draw, you know, lands and action, but we play a random game that you shuffle. So, and with being able to play your 5-drop on turn 4 can sometimes be the world of difference. That's why I always have like mana rocks in acceleration. That's the reason why I do that. And the Commander Sphere is great because early on it gives you that extra speed bump, and then later on when you don't need it, you draw a card off of it. Same way with Hedron Archive and the Dreamstone Hedron, which leads us perfectly into our card draw. Wow, there's a bunch here. Simon Blood, Tormenting Voice. The Tormenting Voice discard is not as bad as it is in a lot of decks. We have some Madness enabling things. Night's Whisper. Here again, with this deck, you kind of want to lose life. So, losing 2 life, drawing 2 cards, it counts as a player losing life, so we'll get a blood token for that. Pact of the Serpent. Now this one, gotta be careful with this one. I have not cast this because it's a fairly new card from Call Time, but whoa. I could kill myself with this easily. Read the Bones, Underworld Connections, Commune with Lava. I'm going to give a try here. I like it because it says exile the top cards. Until the end of your next turn, you may play those cards. So you can do this if you've got open mana. It's an instant. You can do this at the end of the turn right before you, and have 3 or 4 cards maybe to choose from. which is kind of like drawing cards. Damnable Pact, the Sign and Blood on steroids. Draw X cards, lose X life. It also can be a win condition if somebody's low enough. And then a good old Diabolic Tutor, which is not exactly card draw, but it is kind of selection. We don't really have any crazy combos or silver bullets or anything, but there may be. I'm not above tutored for a land if I need it. We have our Stencia Masquerade. Attacking creatures having first strike, that's pretty good. But then whenever a vampire deals combat damage to a player, it gets a counter? What? And, madness for the same cost? Okay. The Glass Cast Heart. Whenever one or more vampires you control attack, you get a blood token. We need blood, right? Then you can pay a life to get a vampire token, and you can, if you have enough blood tokens, yeah, losing 13 life is a heck of a blow. So let's look at these vampires, shall we? First one drop is Viserys Seer. It's a great card. You can read this one without a mirror, so. Vampire of the Dire Moon. The rate on a 1-mana 1/1 with 2 relevant abilities is really good. Falkenrath Gorger. Each vampire you own that isn't on the battlefield has madness, so that's, there again, discarding, not so bad. Indulgent Aristocrat. This one I like. You can sack a creature to put a 1/1 counter on your whole team, all your vampires, including itself, on each vampire you control. Stromkirk Condemned. Vampires, you can only activate it once per turn. They do those as a safeguard to protect it against people like us, Blood Tithe Harvester. You get a blood when it comes in. You can sack it. Some removal. Blood Artist. It's another good way. Yeah, it is a vampire. It works. Vampire Socialite. I can't express to you how much I love this card. It is a great card. 2/2 Menace for 2. Enters the battlefield, and if opponent lost life this turn, well, that's what this entire deck is about, right? You put a 1/1 counter on each other vampire you control. That's a big line. And as long as an opponent has lost life this turn, each other vampire enters the battlefield with an additional counter on it. Wow. Dominating Vampire. Let's, steal a thing. Stromkirk Occultist. There again, not card draw, but kinda. Sign of Opulence. Create a treasure token. Sack 2 artifacts. Blood are artifacts. Treasures are artifacts. Access to more cards. Discard your hand. Draw 3 cards. This may not be a thing. Madness may not matter if you don't have any cards in hand. I'll discard 0 to draw 3. Vampire Nighthawk, just because that raid is amazing. Rakish Air. Whenever a vampire deals combat damage to a player, it gets bigger, so that's nice. Stromkirk Captain. Now, I forget a lot of times that this grants first strike. That is clutch in vampire decks, because a lot of them have, when they deal damage, they get the counter. And first strike. First strike keeps you alive in combat a lot of times. Of course, this just pumps the commander. Falkenrath Noble. Crimson Honor Guard. 4 damage. The beginning of it. I didn't put this in the damage thing because it happens during their instep. And it's conditional. Bloodline Necromancer. You can get a vampire back. Somebody's going to kill him. Anawan is a beast. Everybody, beginning of your upkeep, everybody sacks a non-vampire. Fun times. We have all vampires, so. Starting from here, these are the bigger vampires, the more expensive ones, 5 mana and up. These are the vampires that will probably, we can cast, sure, but we probably want to cheat in with our commander's ability. Malakir Blood Witch can just flat out end a game. Each opponent and it damages all, so we're going to get more blood so that we can play something else, like Batman, the skeletal vampire. And with enough mana, this thing gets scary. You just create a fleet of bats, Sisters of the Undead, the Dracula version. Thank you very much, Mr. Chris. Olivia. Yeah. Just return target creature card from your battlefield, or from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. She's legendary. Our commander's legendary. We have like one more coming up. It's not her deck. Her deck, if you are interested and haven't seen it, her deck is back a few decks ago. It's all legendary vampires. Markov Enforcer, it's a 6/6 for 6. But when a vampire enters ETBs, it fights, okay. And then when a creature dealt damage by this dies, you get a blood, okay. We have the Butcher of Malakir. Good vampire, Or another creature you control dies, everybody sacks something. We have Kazarov, our other legendary vampire. Plus one counter thing. And, if you've got some spare red mana laying around, you can fire off some shocks. And then the big vampire, of course, the Vampiric Dragon. I feel like if this was printed today, it might be 6 mana, not 8. But it does the +1 counter thing. It also does the 2 mana 1 damage thing. So that is not bad at all. And our removal. We're going to start off with Feed the Swarm. It's a good card. It filled a very needed slot. A Braid. Feast of Blood is very flavorful because we have, 2 or more vampires is probably not that much of a hurdle for this particular deck. And, you gain 4 life off it. It's kind of like a Doomblade, but upside. Mire and Misery, getting each opponent to sacrifice a creature or enchantment. They get to make the determination, I know, but I guess it's our job to keep them without creatures, so they'll sacrifice that one enchantment that's, terrible. The Midnight Arsonist. Destroy up to X target artifacts without mana abilities, where X is the number of vampires you control. So that's there's a whole lot there. There's clues, there's bloods, there's just things that people play. A lot of artifacts out there that don't produce mana. I wouldn't crowd to see go. Olivia's Wrath. Each non-vampire creature. That's what you like to hear in a vampire deck, right? It's -X, -X, where X is the number of vampires you control. This is our board wipe. And more importantly, it gets around that nasty indestructible word because it's minuses. And if a creature's toughness is reduced to 0, its state-based effects is placed in the graveyard. So it does not matter if it has indestructible. So let's look at our non-basic alliance. Of course, we have the Unclaimed Territory, choosing vampires, the Command Tower, Rogue's Passage, Evolving Wilds, and Terramorphic, and Path of Ancestry, because we're playing a tribe. Now, I want to address the tap lands, because there are all of my 2-color quote-unquote dual lands are tap lands. Mainly because that's what I have access to. Don't exactly have the budget to put shocks and fetches in all of the 840 decks so far. So there are times when you need the ability to be able to produce black or red. In this particular deck, you may want to produce on turn 1 a single black, and on turn 2 2 red, and then 3 black. Those are options. Now, granted, tap lands put you a turn behind, but at least you get to do something. Are they better than basics? Nah, depends on the situation. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. So, anyway, that's why I use them. It fixes your mana. it gives you either color. So, Tainted Peak, Cinder Barons, Rakdos Guildgate, and Carnarum. The Bloodfell Caves. Oh, it won't stay in the box. Get in the box. And then the A.S.M. Refuge is our last one. So, that is another vampire deck. I know I've made a lot of vampire decks, but I do like that they made them at least a little different. You know what I'm saying? That they're not all, every vampire legend they've done doesn't have the same shtick. So that I like. So let's go put Strefan up on the wall. Hey, we're finishing the road today. 840 is done and on the wall, ready to play. Maybe it'll get played this weekend. Who knows? Anyway, that is it for today. I do appreciate it, and y'all let me know what you think. But right now, we're going to shuffle and cut.